The first sign of panic was the vice president's voice cracking as he snapped, "Which investor just pulled 50 million?" His phone vibrated against the table, then another, and another, until the entire boardroom sounded like a swarm of trapped nerves. I stood near the wall, exactly where they had pushed me minutes earlier, the same place Trenton Hale had pointed at when he said, "There's no place for you here. Please leave." I remembered the way Marcus Feld, our celebrated founder and my direct boss, looked at my thrift store blazer before adding, "Someone with no money has no business being in this meeting." I had not argued. I had not defended myself. I had simply nodded, stepped aside, and sent 3 quiet words to my investment firm. Now the consequences were unfolding in real time. "Marcus, you need to see this," the chief financial officer muttered, staring at his screen as if it had betrayed him. "This cannot be right." Our anchor investor initiated a full withdrawal. The room recoiled. Board members began dialing numbers with trembling hands. One man cursed under his breath, saying something about a catastrophic hole in the Series C roadmap. Marcus pushed his chair back so forcefully it scraped the floor. "This makes no sense," he snapped. "Northlake Strategic Partners would never do this without warning. Why would they pull $50 million today of all days?" His voice cracked on the word million. Trenton glared at me as if my presence alone had jinxed the meeting. "Why are you still here, Averly?" he hissed. "This is a confidential discussion. Go wait outside, like you were told." I didn't move. Not because I wanted to defy him, but because I was watching something I had spent years predicting finally arrive. Their power was noise boasts, orders, insults. Mine was quiet. Mine had always been quiet. A new wave of alerts rolled across the table. Someone whispered that venture partners were already backing out. Marcus's shoulders slumped as he reread the notification, disbelief draining into fear. All of this began the moment they decided my worth could be measured by what they assumed I did not have. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Revenge. It draws inspiration from the silent battles many women face in the workplace: dismissal, humiliation, and the erasure of their contributions. We tell this story to honor the resilience of a woman who refuses to shrink herself for anyone. All characters and events are purely illustrative, crafted to shine a light on the strength that grows in silence until the moment it chooses to rise. And as the boardroom continued unraveling, I stayed where I was, saying nothing at all, knowing chapter 2 of this story had begun long before they realized I would not be leaving. 2 weeks earlier, I sat in a conference room, surrounded by people who pretended not to notice me. Marcus paced at the front, outlining a roadmap I had helped assemble. He did not mention that part. He never did. "Let's keep this tight," he said. "Only essential voices today." Trenton flicked his eyes toward me. "Averly, you can stay, but no interruptions. This is financial strategy." "I know," I answered. He smirked. "You know the outline, not the money behind it." A few people laughed softly, the kind of laughter meant to be polite only to the powerful. When the meeting ended, teams huddled into smaller groups to discuss follow-ups. No one asked me to join. Instead, a junior analyst approached with hesitant pity. "Hey, if you want some of my lunch coupons, I have extras. Mine are for the nicer spot downstairs." I told him I was fine. Another whispered, "I heard you still live in that old complex in Rainier Valley. Must be rough with rent going up." I nodded because it was easier than reminding him that I chose that neighborhood. I grew up there, and its quiet corners had taught me how to survive people who spoke over me, people who mistook silence for weakness. Later that afternoon, I discovered I had been removed from 2 major project email threads. I walked to Trenton's office doorway. "You took me off the communication chain." He did not look up. "Streamlining. You do not need to drown in details you cannot contribute to. Those were my assignments." "Averly, please," he said. "Stay useful, not ambitious." As I turned to leave, an intern hurried over. She lowered her voice. "I should not say anything, but I heard Trenton telling HR they should phase you out after the next round. He said you're not strategic material." The words hit harder than she knew, but I thanked her. By the time I reached the elevator, the decision had already begun forming quietly inside me, steady and sharp. When I got home that night, the walls of my small Fremont apartment felt like a familiar exhale. People at work imagined this place as proof of my limitations, but it was the only space where no one tried to shrink me. I dropped my bag, opened my laptop, and logged into the encrypted channel that ruled the other half of my life. Liza Armentrout appeared on the screen, glasses pushed up into her hair, already scrolling through numbers. "You are late," she said. "I had a day." I replied. She snorted. "Judging by the way you say that, someone insulted you again, more than once." I leaned back. "Give me the updates." Liza adjusted a chart. "Revenue projections are stable, liquidity window is widening, and our largest portfolio company, the one you refuse to name out loud, is still depending on our approval for the next tranche." She meant Marcus's company. I stared at the chart, remembering the night 8 years earlier when I inherited a modest trust from my grandmother, a quiet woman who worked as a Boeing engineer and never spoke about the future she hoped I'd build. The trust held just under $200,000. I had used every cent to seed Northlake Strategic Partners. Liza joined soon after, believing in numbers the same way I did, through discipline, not bravado. Years later, when Marcus's startup was days from collapsing, Northlake made its first major commitment. I remembered signing the transfer, my hand steady, knowing he would never thank the anonymous fund that saved him. He never even tried to find out who we were. Liza's voice pulled me back. "Averly, the truth is simple. We are their anchor investor. They barely survive without us." I nodded. "And they have no idea who I am to them." "That secrecy was your choice," she reminded me. "It was," I said. "But choices can change." Northlake's lifeline was still in my hands, waiting for the moment I stopped pretending their insults meant nothing. The next morning, I sat at my desk with Northlake's quarterly summaries open on my screen. 80% of Marcus's runway had come from our fund across 3 separate rounds. I traced each line item with my cursor, remembering the late nights Liza and I had debated risk profiles, while Marcus bragged publicly about his instincts. Trenton passed my desk and paused long enough to smirk. "Big meeting today. Try not to get in the way." I kept my voice calm. "I am scheduled to support the team." "You are scheduled to stay quiet," he corrected, tapping my monitor as if scolding a child. "Leave the important work to those who understand it." He walked off without waiting for a response. A junior analyst, Tessa, approached me a few minutes later with a hesitant expression. "Could you look at this model with me?" Trenton said. "It was too complicated for me, but I think something in it is off." "Bring it here," I said. We worked through the numbers together. Her instincts were sharp, cleaner than most senior staff. "You are right," I told her. "Your approach is stronger than his." She blinked, unsure. "Should I tell him you should trust your work?" I said gently. The moment she left, my phone buzzed. A forwarded internal memo from someone anonymous. Proposed staff reductions after Series C. Positions marked non-essential: 1 project coordinator A. Quinn? My stomach tightened. I scrolled further, seeing the justification: low strategic value, replaceable, minimal financial understanding. Marcus walked by then, cheerful as ever. "Averly, make sure you finish those reports. Big things ahead." He did not notice the document still open on my screen, the one outlining my erasure. I had spent years holding up a company that planned to discard me the first chance it got. The cross-department briefing was already tense when Trenton pointed at the projection screen and said, "This section is too complicated. Let the adults handle the financials." His eyes slid to me. The room followed. I kept my notes steady. "I built that section." "Exactly," he replied. "Which is why it needs correction." A few people laughed under their breath. Someone muttered that I should stick to formatting slides. When the meeting ended, Marcus caught up to me in the hallway. "Take this the right way," he began, which meant he knew I wouldn't. "You are capable, but not at the level we need. Maybe think about roles that match your strengths, something less technical." "My work is technical," I said quietly. He sighed. "Averly, stay in your lane. There is no harm in knowing your limits." His voice softened as if he were doing me a kindness, and that hurt more than his words. I stepped into the stairwell before my expression betrayed anything. The door closed behind me, and the silence collapsed into me like a weight. For the first time in years, a tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it quickly, refusing to let even empty air witness more than that. My phone rang. Liza's voice cut through the fog. "The board wants reassurance Northlake will support the Series C. They are nervous about liquidity timing." I leaned against the railing. "They assume we will keep holding them up." We always have, she said. And look what they built with it. My voice steadied. Arrogance, entitlement, a culture that crushes anyone they find inconvenient. Before she could respond, a notification flashed across my screen, an email from HR. Your position is under review. Expect updates following the next funding milestone. So that was their plan. Liza spoke again. Averly. Are you still there? I am, I said. But I am done pretending they deserve the safety net we keep giving them. The pre-Series C meeting was already overcrowded when Trenton spotted me near the back wall. His mouth tightened. You were not invited to this discussion. There is no place for you here. Marcus added, someone with no money should not be sitting in on a meeting about multi-million-dollar strategy. Step outside. I did not answer. I simply stepped aside, letting their words settle over me like dust that no longer clung. My phone was already in my hand. Liza had texted an update Northlake ready, awaiting your instruction. I typed 3 words. Execute option 7. The message sent without a sound. A silent command that traveled farther and faster than any insult they had thrown my way. Trenton gestured again. Impatient. Why are you still here? Go. I will stand, I said, moving to the corner of the room. He muttered something about incompetence and went back to whispering with Marcus. Marcus stepped to the front. Let us review projected valuation after the next 18 months. Based on our trajectory, we anticipate crossing $300 million. A consultant raised a brow. Assuming your current financial structure holds. It will, Marcus insisted. Our anchor investor remains committed. My phone vibrated once. Withdrawal commencing. 30 seconds. I silenced the screen. Trenton continued bragging about enterprise growth. Marcus spewed numbers with practiced charm. They never noticed the way the room shifted, how uncertainty flickered across the faces of the advisors who sensed something unseen was approaching. Another vibration. A legal alert this time. Northlake had executed the first stage of the withdrawal protocol. My pulse stayed steady. My breathing stayed even. Marcus launched into another inflated projection, his voice swelling with confidence. He had no idea the ground had already begun to open beneath him. The first phone rang so loudly it cut through Marcus's sentence. Then a second. Then nearly every device around the table lit up in frantic vibration. The chief financial officer, Daniel Cho, glanced at his screen and went pale. No, this cannot be happening. Marcus frowned. Daniel, what is it? Daniel swallowed hard. Our anchor investor just initiated a full withdrawal. $50 million is gone. The words detonated through the room. What do you mean gone? Marcus snapped. That capital is locked in. It cannot just vanish. Daniel shook his head. Northlake exercised a withdrawal provision buried in the early agreements. We missed the renewal deadline. It is legally airtight. Trenton's voice cracked. That is impossible. Northlake has never interfered. They promised stability. A consultant checked her phone. Your Series C partners are backing out. Several just froze communication. Panic rippled across the table. Chairs scraped. Papers rustled. Someone whispered that the valuation would crumble within hours. Marcus slammed a hand onto the table. Who authorized this? Who holds that decision authority? Daniel hesitated. Then opened a legal file. His eyes flicked from the screen to me. The authorization comes from Northlake's founding partner. The room followed his stare. Silence thickened. Marcus blinked. Averly, why are they looking at you? I stepped forward. Because I am the founding partner. Trenton stared as if I had spoken in another language. Northlake Strategic Partners is yours. It has been mine since day one, I said. Every round you celebrated, I funded. Every crisis you survived, I stabilized. And every insult you threw, I heard. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered. You kept this from us. I kept it quiet so your arrogance could show itself, I said, and it did. The room stayed frozen, the collapse unfolding faster than any of them could grasp. Marcus moved first, stepping toward me with a look that swung wildly between fury and desperation. Averly, listen, we can fix this. Tell Northlake to reverse the withdrawal. We will renegotiate your role. Anything you want, title, salary, equity, anything. I shook my head. Power is not something you dangle only when you are afraid of losing it. Trenton pointed a shaking finger at HR's director across the room. This is your fault. You approved her role reduction. You told us she was low priority. She flinched. I followed leadership instructions. You signed the directive. Trenton, he sputtered. You should have warned me she was this Daniel, the chief financial officer, cleared his throat. We need Averly's cooperation. Otherwise, our financial structure collapses by quarter end. Marcus turned back to me, voice softening. Averly, I misjudged you. We all did. Let us correct that. Join the executive team. Let us show you we value you. Their sudden reverence felt hollow. Respect that arrives only when you are cornered is not respect, I said. It is survival instinct. A notification pinged on the conference screen. The incoming replacement investor group had issued a statement. Daniel read it aloud with trembling hands. They are initiating a full internal audit of company practices. They want transparency before committing long-term. Marcus froze. An audit? Who requested an audit? I did. I answered. Weeks ago, in preparation for this transition. You planned this, Trenton gasped. I prepared for options. I said, your behavior chose the outcome. Marcus sank into his chair, staring at the table as if it had betrayed him. Around us, board members whispered frantically, each calculating how far the consequences might spread now that secrecy was no longer protecting them. The audit team arrived within 48 hours, moving through the building with quiet precision. By the end of the week, the conference room filled with documents, timestamps, and receipts that told a story Marcus and Trenton had spent years pretending did not exist. On the 6th morning, the lead auditor closed a binder and looked directly at the board. There is clear evidence of financial misreporting on the operations side. Funds were reassigned without approval. Projections were altered. These actions point to deliberate manipulation. Trenton shot out of his chair. I never touched the numbers. That is a lie. Daniel, the chief financial officer, pushed forward a file. These changes were made under your login. That system is flawed, Trenton insisted. But his voice had lost its certainty. The board chair answered with a finality that left no room for argument. Trenton Hale, you are terminated with cause. You will not hold a leadership role in this company again. Security escorted him out as he continued to protest. Marcus sat motionless, hands clasped. When the auditor turned to him, he exhaled shakily. What now? You allowed these decisions, the auditor replied. Your negligence enabled every misstep. The board voted without debate. Marcus Feld was demoted to an advisory role with no decision-making power. When the motion ended, the chair turned to a young woman seated near the back. We move that Madison Clark be appointed Chief Executive Officer. Madison blinked in disbelief. I had mentored her for 2 years. Quiet brilliance, steady judgment. None of the arrogance the previous leadership wore like armor. She approached me after the meeting. Averly, I want you as a strategic advisor. You see the company clearly. We need that. Her offer was sincere, generous. I smiled. You do not need me. You just need the chance they never gave you. She nodded slowly. Then thank you for clearing the way. For the first time in years, the company's future felt like something built on truth, rather than fear. In the months after the audit, my days changed in ways I had never expected. Northlake completed its withdrawal, and the $50 million returned to my hands felt less like reclaimed capital and more like reclaimed breath. Liza and I began directing it into women-led companies across Seattle small labs, community innovation collectives, and founders who reminded me of the person I might have been if anyone had believed in me sooner. 1 year later, Madison invited me back to speak with her leadership team. Marcus was not there. He remained tucked away in his advisory role, offering input only when asked. Trenton's name had been erased from every internal record. The company felt different, lighter, grounded, honest. After the meeting, a journalist approached me in the hallway. Miss Quinn, some people say you should have fought to take over. Why walk away when you clearly had the power to do more? I held her gaze. Control was never my goal, I said. Impact was. And impact does not require ownership. It requires knowing when to stop giving your strength to people who mistake silence for weakness. She nodded slowly, as if letting the words settle in. That evening, I walked along the edge of Elliott Bay. The waves were quiet, steady, nothing like the chaos that had once dictated my life. I thought of my grandmother and her $200,000 of trust, the seed that grew into a future she never lived to see. I thought of every closed door, every dismissive laugh, Every moment I swallowed instead of shouting back. Liza called to ask if I had reviewed a new pitch deck. I told her I had, and that I liked it. We talked about next steps, calm and certain. Before ending the call, I said the life lesson I had earned the long way around: when you stop pouring your power into the wrong hands, your life finally has room to grow in the right direction.